Hey guys, it's Chad with Thursday in Paradise. Man, did I trigger you? I probably triggered you. You guys triggered the shit out of me too. So, you know, I'm not saying that I'm 100% right in anything. Obviously, it was my pain body that got triggered, that caused me to write the things that I wrote. And it really feels like no one's seeing it from what I'm trying to say, though. And then they're trying to, and what I'm referring to is this Me Too, in quotes, on Facebook. Now, I'm going to try to keep this as neutral as I can, and just explain where I'm coming from, explain where I got this knowledge, and explain what's happening within myself and what I believe is happening with the collective, with everybody else. So, anyways, with these Me Too posts, I'm sure everybody knows what they are, but I'm sure they started out in an innocent manner. People trying to band together saying, hey, I was the victim of sexual harassment. Innocent enough, I guess. And I started seeing this on a lot of people's posts. It was coming up in my newsfeed a lot. But it wasn't just Me Too. It was Me Too, and then underneath it was a whole thing of what they went through and why they're a victim, which is an illusion. We are 100% responsible for everything in our lives because we created it. We are creator beings. And when you're putting the blame on outside, say, Me Too, man, that someone did that to me. Well, you have to take responsibility for the creation that you've created in your life, what you've attracted to yourself, what you've agreed to. So everything in our lives, our higher selves have agreed to. Maybe not like every little tiny stupid little detail, but anything significant that's happened in your life, your higher self has agreed to it because it's for a lesson. So, I really feel like I'm just being the vessel to trigger people. It is what it is. That's just the position I'm in. So, as masters, we shouldn't be getting triggered with anything. And I got triggered. Did you get triggered? We have work that we need to do. So, I'm going to read some stuff out of some books. And we're going to process this together. If you would please join me in the processing of our emotions and how we got triggered. Okay. So the first book. This is a two-part book. This is Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. The first half of this book is about the ego. The second half of this book is about the pain body and what the pain body is. So I'm going to read you some stuff about ego. And, we talk about ego a lot. And I had to go through like treatment, rehab, a couple years ago. And they talked about ego a lot in just recovery in general. We talk about ego a lot. And I've come to notice that lots of people talk about ego that don't even really know what an ego is. And I can say this for myself. Before my awakening, before I got sober, I thought I knew what an ego was, but I had no clue. And at some point, I think I even started to believe that an ego was a good thing. And it may be a good thing in certain little aspects, but just in general, it's a false sense of self is what an ego is. So let me just read you, and I'm not going to read that much. So this is the illusory self. The I embodied the greatest error in the deepest truth, depending on how it's used. In conventional usage, it is not only one of the most frequently used words in the language, together with the related words me, my, mine, and myself, but also one of the most misleading. In normal everyday usage, I embodies the primordial error and misconception of who you are. An illusory sense of identity. This is ego. The illusory sense of self is what Albert Einstein, who had a deep insight not only into the reality of space and time, but also into the human nature, referred to as an optical illusion of consciousness. That illusory sense of self becomes the basis for all further interpretations, or rather misinterpretations of reality. Although processes, interactions, and relationships, your reality becomes a reflection of the original illusion. The good news is, if you can recognize illusion as illusion, it dissolves. The recognition of illusion is also its ending. Its survival depends on you mistaking it for reality. In the seeing of who you are not, the reality of who you are emerges by itself. So I'll just keep reading. It becomes identified with a gender, a possession, a sense of self-perceived body, a nationality, a race, a religion, a profession. Other things the I identifies with are roles as mother, father, husband, wife, victim, and so on. Accumulated knowledge or opinions, likes and dislikes, and also things that happened to me in the past, the memory of which are thoughts that further define my sense of self and me and my story. These are only some of the things people derive from their sense of identity. There are ultimately no more thoughts held together precariously by the fact that they are invested with the sense of self. This mental construct is that you normally refer to when you say I. To be more precise, most of the time, it is not you who speaks when you say I think, but some aspect or mental construct of the egoic self. Once you awaken, you still use the word I, but it becomes from a much deeper place from within yourself. My mouth is dry. All right. So that's a basic understanding of what an ego is. It's just a false sense of self. You are not a person. I am not Chad. I am consciousness. I am, source. I am a spirit in a body. This is not my body. I'm borrowing it. But literally, people's consciousnesses, their spirits or souls, can pop in and out of bodies. I've seen it. Until people get possessed. People go into a coma and they'll come out acting like a completely different person. That's called a walk-in. So it's not really your body. We are not humans, we are spirits. So when you start to identify with certain things, I like that, or this is what I think, or me, myself, mine, you're creating, and you are what's the word I'm looking for? You're identifying with things to become part of your sense of self. That's false. That's not really you. So now I'm going to jump ahead to the pain body. And the pain body has a lot more to do with what this post was, this Me Too post. And a lot of people never even heard of the pain body before. So the pain body is much the same as an ego, and it's an entity that lives inside of you that needs to be fed. But this feeds itself off emotion. And so it's a little bit different than ego, but it can turn into ego. We'll get there. How the pain body renews itself. And I just think it's kind of funny that it's on page 144. The pain body is a semi-autonomous energy form that lives without or within. Let me restart that sentence. The pain body is a semi-autonomous energy form that lives within most human beings. an entity made up of emotion. It has its own primitive intelligence, not unlike a cunning animal, and its intelligence is directed primarily at survival. Like all life forms, it periodically needs to feed, to take in new energy, and the food it requires to replenish itself consists of energy that is compatible with its own, which is to say, energy that vibrates at a similar frequency. Any emotional, painful experience can be used as food by the pain body. That's why it thrives on negative thinking as well as drama in relationships. The pain body is an addiction to unhappiness. It may be shocking when you realize for the first time that there is something within you that periodically seeks emotional negativity, seeks unhappiness. You need even more awareness to see it in yourself than to recognize it in others. Once the unhappiness has taken over you, not only do you not want it to end, but you want to make others just as miserable as you are in order to keep feeding the negative emotional reaction, or so that you can feed off of their negative emotional reactions. The pain body has a dormant and active stage. When it is dormant, you easily forget that you carry a heavy dark cloud or a dormant volcano inside of you. Depending on the energy field of the particular pain body, how long it remains dormant varies on person to person. A few weeks are most common, but it can last a few days or months. In rare cases, the pain body can lie in hibernation for years before it gets triggered by some event. Okay. How the pain body feeds on your thoughts. Pain body awakens from its dormancy when it gets hungry, when it is time to replenish itself. Alternatively, it may get triggered by an event at any time. The pain body that is ready to feed can use the most insignificant event as a trigger, something somebody says or does, or even a thought. If you live alone or there is nobody around at the time, the pain body will feed off of your thoughts. Suddenly, your thinking becomes deeply negative. You were most likely unaware that prior to the influx of negative thinking was a wave of emotion that invaded your mind, as a dark and heavy mood, as anxiety or fiery anger. All thought is energy, and the pain body is now feeding on the energy of your thoughts. But now it cannot feed on any thought. You don't need to be particularly sensitive to notice that a positive thought has a totally different feeling and tone than a negative one. It is the same energy, but it vibrates at a different frequency. A happy, positive thought is indigestible to the pain body. It can only feed on negative thoughts because only those thoughts are compatible with its own energy field. Notice how when we put, so this is like a pain body. We're saying me too. So what we just learned is saying me too is the same thing as saying I am or I have. I am a victim of it too, and you're just saying me too. You're changing me for I, or I for me, but it's still referring to yourself in a illusory way. And so the pain body. So this gets posted, and then everyone jumps on that because it vibrates with your pain body's frequency. I posted a positive post on mine where I said, I am responsible for everything in my life, and I am the creator, and I choose peace, love, and harmony, or unity. Post I am if you agree. And I guarantee you if I check my phone, there's not one copy and paste or one like or anything like that, because it's a positive thing. So the pain body feeds off of things that vibrate at the same frequency. So when we put something out there, we can call it light, we can call it good, we can call it something positive, but what the underlying meaning of what's going on has a very negative connotation. And I'm not saying it's right for me, but look at what kind of negative responses I got, and I'm just one person that took that the wrong way. and I took it in a way that I saw how it was being portrayed. And maybe it's my spiritual ego of knowing about a pain body and knowing that people are just getting triggered, their pain, so they're feeding an entity in themselves that they're not really even aware of, that they need to dissolve. And so that our world, our collective consciousness can move on, can go into the next new golden age of Gaia or Terra, move into the fifth dimension. We cannot ascend when we're still repeating these patterns of victim consciousness. Whether you want to call it victim consciousness or banding together, whatever. It was based on someone being sexually harassed and you agreeing with that, and that's feeding into the illusion of being a victim. So we'll get into that next. So that was just a couple little excerpts from A New Earth. All right. The next thing I want to read you is coming from The Great Human Potential, Walking in One's Own Light, Teachings from the Pleiades and the Hathors. Okay, so this came out in 2013, and with the introduction it says, this information we give you in this book is what we consider the most appropriate vibrational match for where you are right now. That means as a collective consciousness. So the excerpt I'm going to read isn't even on page 1. It's in the preface. It's like way back here. Let me find it. Okay. These times are of great acceleration and expansion, and if we really want to go from one reality to another, from one vibration to the next, we have to get serious about eliminating judgments, false beliefs, and manipulations, especially those that come from religions. There are very powerful programs, and they keep us in fear and drama. When you have drama, you have karma. Another challenge is to understand that living in the moment is where all our potential is, not in the past or in the future. Usually we ignore the present moment, and by doing so, we take away its power. Right now, we are giving the opportunity for a new scenario. We are advancing towards a completely different dispensation of consciousness, from the ego conscience to the eco conscience. As written by Otto Scharmer in the book Leading from the Emerging Future. That higher level of consciousness will require a realization that we are not victims, but rather willing participants. If we understand that we are creators of 100% of our reality and accept it, then everything changes. The ninth dimensional Pleiadians say, if you still see yourselves as victims, then you do not take responsibility for your part in the experience. You are judging, and judgment is only possible in the mentality of victim/perpetrator. So it goes on to whatever. So that was from the Pleiadians, the ninth dimensional Pleiadians, saying you guys got to take responsibility for everything in your life because we're active creators. We're creating our reality. So, and this is the last thing I'll read, and this kind of has to do with what that is. But this comes off of like a guide to ascension. And, yeah, I'll read it. Releasing Victim Consciousness Leads to Your Ascension by Sabrina Reber. Ascension requires everyone to understand that you nor anyone else is ever separate from the Creator. Therefore, the Creator is fully aware of everything going on within and around you. Everything happens for a divine reason. The reason people are born into difficult situations is due to karma. Karma is not simply punishment. Karma is an oft-pitched vibrations in the human energy system that simply seeks energy balance. Each soul, along with a team of spiritual advisors, with final approval from the Creator, chooses their major life lessons and key players before they even incarnate into a physical body. Yes, we each still have free will, and not everything is set in stone. However, family situations and major life events are agreed upon based on the lessons the soul needs to learn. Absolutely nothing happens without the higher self's approval. Absolutely nothing. No one is a victim. Whether it be through our own subconscious energy, the law of attraction, karma, or simply an agreed upon life experience to learn and grow from, everything that happens to us is here to help us evolve and advance our souls so we can remember who we are and return to love. The longer people stay victim in separation, dualistic, evil, and good consciousness, refusing to accept personal responsibility for their own lives, soul lessons, and healing, the longer they will not be able to rise above the lower self, egoic consciousness that keeps them enslaved. I'm going to read that again because I don't feel like I read that very well. The longer people stay in victim, separation, dualistic, evil or good consciousness, refusing to accept personal responsibility for their own lives, soul lessons, and the healing, the longer it will take, and the longer they will not be able to rise above the lower self, egoic consciousness that keeps them enslaved. The sooner people understand that whatever is happening to them is an opportunity for a deeper level of healing, the sooner they will be able to learn and integrate the soul lessons that are being given and shown to them. If you are submersed in evil circumstances, then you attract those situations to you. It is only you who will be able to shift your energy into a new direction so you can create change within your being for a better future. Evil is actually live spelt backwards. Evil means you are living backwards from the universal law of the Creator. Evil also means you have a veil over your consciousness and you are veiled from the truth and the light. The veil of the ego, and it must be removed before we will fully be able to put your garments of light on. Before you're able to put on your garments of light. The spiritual path is a path of personal responsibility. It is of transforming yourself and your energy. If people do not accept responsibility for their creations, they will never be able to stand in a place of empowerment to create the change they so desire. They will always lose their power expecting someone else to make the changes for them when they had the power to create the change all along. Denial of your creations will keep you in a vicious cycle of recreation. The inner path of soul healing and self-responsibility leads to salvation. The outer path of victim consciousness, projections, and staying focused on other people's soul lessons will lead to the world of illusions and more pain. The spiritual path requires us to look at things from a higher perspective. However, the ego will keep you looking at things solely from the human perspective, which is full of criticism, opinions, limitations, and judgments. The ego can never see the spiritual solution. The ego, ego, which is edges God out and makes you feel like you are a victim when you are actually a creator being. Only those who have ears to hear and eyes to see will be able to see reality for what it is. In order to get to this place, we must each accept personal responsibility for the expansion, healing, and transformation of our own energy. I'm sorry if I triggered you. I'm sorry if you don't agree with kind of my stance on it. I feel like, I don't feel like everyone is submerged in this victim consciousness, but I think the spreading of it doesn't create anything good, and I'm not saying that the light workers are evil or that they're false. And I'm sorry for saying that. Something that came up I'm sure to trigger you, but it was something that I felt guided that I had to post or say. And you know, I can't say I regret it. I can say that it wasn't right, or that, you know, maybe I was wrong, but it was said for a reason. Maybe, you know, just to trigger people, I guess. I don't know. Sometimes when stuff like that's happening, or I'm writing stuff, it's like kind of just being channeled through me, and I'll write something, I'll read it later, and I'll be like, what the fuck was I saying? Anyways, so take the information however you want, piece it together, but, you know, pain body, the ego, the victim consciousness, which is illusion. We're all willing participants, and we all have to take responsibility. And so I even do this, I take this kind of to the next step with using Ho'oponopono. I don't just take responsibility for everything that I've been through and everything that I experience. I take responsibility for everything in my awareness. And that doesn't mean that, like I used in the video yesterday that I erased, doesn't mean that if someone goes and robs a bank that I'm going to run over to the cops and say I take responsibility for that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm taking responsibility for the energy of it, so that I can take the energy, put it on myself, and then clear it out. So I'm constantly clearing all this energy. So right now, all this negative energy that I have created is completely my fault, and I take full responsibility for it. And you know what? I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Oh, I just got major chills going through my body when I did that time. So, you know, I'm sorry if we have negative emotions going here. I got triggered just as much, and it is my ego and my pain body that gets me replying to people's comments and trying to be right all the time, which I'm not. But I feel like it's not so much my opinion as it's just principles and facts that I know and that I learn and that I actively practice. And like I said, you triggered my ego too, and I wasn't in the right doing that and arguing with people and this and that. But I do my best to practice these, and because I'm in recovery, it's like a constant thing. I put these principles in my everyday life and in all my affairs, and this helps me stay sober. And it helps me it's really like just being in the recovery community has really helped me transform myself and not be so entitled, and just more accepting and more humble. So again, take that for what you will. I say we focus on what we want to experience and let the rest of it fall away. By acknowledging it, it's just creating more of it. And one thing, like, I got molested when I was 7 years old by an older male. He made me do things, and then he taught me how to do those things to him by doing them to me, and it was super traumatic in my life. I held it in for, it seemed like a really long time, but I was just a little kid. I held it in for as long as I could, and then I just fucking broke down, and I cried, and I got it out. And I talked to the right people about it, and I was able to heal myself from the inside. But we didn't have social media then, but we don't have to spread all this stuff. That there's children and there's people that have no clue about this stuff, and by putting all this energy on it, it can come into their consciousness now. And when that does, and then they start thinking about it, then they create that in their lives. And I understand it's kind of a catch-22 from what I was just saying, that we're all creators of our own lives, and that we are, our higher selves agree to things. So that is kind of a catch-22 on that. But just in general, like, if we're all conscious of the vibrations that we're putting out, and we can actively take responsibility for it and clear those out and deal with our emotions ourselves, because we don't need the approval of everyone else. Why do we have to band together that we got harassed? We don't need outside influences. We don't need outside approval. That's stuff that's outside of us. And then by putting it out in the open like this, and really affirming it to yourself, it just creates more energy on it, and it really affirms it to who you are, and now you're identifying with it, and that becomes part of your illusion of your false sense of self, and it becomes ego. So it's something real minor that just builds up and gets ego, and there's all this energy on it. Let's create a world of peace, a world of positivity, of unity, of love. And that's all that I wanted to get across, and it turned into something that it shouldn't have, and that is, a bad judgment on my part, or discernment. And I probably shouldn't have put it on, like, start arguing with people on Facebook who are totally still in the 3D. They're not, so that triggers the shit out of them. They don't even understand why I was saying certain things. So I had good intentions with it. I'm not trying to fight with you guys. I'm not trying to have enemies and cause all this, anguish and whatever. So take it for what it is. I love you guys. I'm sorry. Peace.